On a cold winter night in February 1978, 5 men left their small California town to watch a basketball game. They were excited, laughing, making plans for the next morning. They never came home. What followed was not just a disappearance but one of the strangest, most disturbing mysteries in American history. A case so illogical, so haunting, that even investigators were left speechless. Every answer uncovered only led to deeper questions, and nearly 5 decades later, no one can explain why these 5 men walked into the mountains and never walked back. This is the story of the Yuba County Five. The 5 men were not strangers. They knew each other well. They lived structured lives, followed routines, and depended on predictability. Their names were Gary Mathias, Jack Hoot, William Sterling, Jackie Hewitt, and Theodore Ted Wyhar. All 5 had mild intellectual disabilities or mental health challenges. They were known in their town as gentle, responsible, and dependable. TELD Hobes, they followed rules. They hated breaking routines. Some were afraid of the dark. Some were terrified of being late. They were not adventurers. They were not rebels. And they were absolutely not the type of people who would voluntarily wander into the freezing wilderness at night. On February 24, 1978, the men traveled from Yuba City to Chico, California to attend a college basketball game. It was a big event for them. They had been talking about it for weeks. After the game, witnesses saw them happy and calm. They stopped at a convenience store, bought snacks and chocolate milk, and then began the drive home. They never arrived. 2 days later, their car was found. It was abandoned on a remote mountain road in the Plumas National Forest, more than 70 miles off their route home. The location made no sense. The road was unpaved, snow-covered, and dangerous especially at night. None of the men were familiar with the area. None of them liked traveling in remote places, and none of them had any reason to be there. The car itself raised even more questions. It wasn't crashed. It wasn't damaged. It wasn't stuck beyond recovery. The gas tank was nearly full. The keys were missing. The doors were unlocked. The car could have been driven out easily, yet it was abandoned, as if they had all stepped out at once and walked away. The weather that night had dropped well below freezing. Snow was deep. Survival without shelter or supplies would have been nearly impossible. Yet there was no sign of panic near the car, no scattered belongings, no signs of struggle, just silence. For months, the search yielded nothing. Families waited. Rumors spread. Some believed the men had encountered foul play. Others believed they had become disoriented. But nothing prepared anyone for what was discovered 4 months later. In June 1978, a group of motorcyclists riding through the mountains stumbled upon something horrific. Inside a Forest Service trailer, they found the remains of Ted White. He was wrapped in bedsheets. He had lost over 100 pounds, and he had been alive in that trailer for weeks. The trailer contained enough food to last a year. Canned meals, dehydrated rations, heating equipment, matches, none of it had been properly used. Ted had starved to death, surrounded by food. The details became even more disturbing. Ted had not been injured. He had not been restrained. He had not been trapped. He simply did not open the food. The cans were unopened Devon, though he had a can opener in his possession. Instead, he had eaten small amounts of food that did not require opening. He had used scraps. He had rationed incorrectly. He froze. He starved. Slowly. Alone. And investigators believe he lived for up to 2 months after the others disappeared, which means he was not alone at first. Nearby, search teams found the remains of William Sterling and Jack Hoot. They were scattered in different locations. One was found partially eaten by animals. Another had succumbed to hypothermia. There were no signs of violence, but there were signs of movement, long-distance movement. The men had walked miles uphill, through deep snow, in the wrong direction. People trained in survival say this makes no sense. People panicking usually go downhill. They seek shelter. They follow roads. These men did none of that. The most terrifying part of the case was who was never found. Gary Mathias. Gary was different from the others. He had schizophrenia, but he was intelligent, street-smart, and capable. He knew how to survive. He had military experience, and he vanished completely. No body, no clothing, no trace. Some investigators believe Gary may have survived the longest. Others believe he may have led the group into the mountains for reasons no one understands. But here's the problem. Gary was afraid of the cold. Gary hated the mountains. Gary had plans the next morning. He had medication he needed. Nothing about this trip fits his personality or anyone else's. One witness came forward with a chilling story. A man claimed that on the same night the 5 men disappeared, he had suffered a heart attack on the same mountain road. He said he saw 4 men and a woman standing near a car. He called out for help. They did not respond. Then they vanished into the darkness. Investigators could never confirm this account, but the question remains, who was the woman? There were no women with the group. As investigators reconstructed the timeline, the mystery deepened. Why did the men leave their car? Why did they walk into lethal terrain? Why didn't they use the shelter properly? Why didn't they light fires? Why didn't they eat the food? Why did they separate? Why did they go uphill? And most terrifying of all, what made 5 grown men abandon safety and walk willingly into death? Some believe the men encountered someone or something that frightened them. Others believe a psychological episode affected the group collectively. Some suggest military experiments, cult interference, or even extraterrestrial involvement. But none of these theories explain everything. The car was operable. The trailer was stocked. Help was possible. Survival was achievable. Yet every choice they made was the wrong one. The families never found peace. They never received answers. And the forest never gave up its secrets. The road where the car was found remains quiet. Snow still falls. Trees still stand. But those who visit say the silence there feels different. Heavy. As if something happened that was never meant to be understood. Because the Yuba County Five didn't just disappear. They unraveled. Step by step. Decision by decision. Until logic itself vanished with them. And maybe that's what makes this case so terrifying. Not that something attacked them, but that something led them away and watched as they made choices no one can explain.